Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Frank Elsten, Raphie Cantor, Chris Reed. We are all here. We are assembled. We keep working through the offseason. We keep generating top-flight Padres content for you. Even on November 27th, 2023, as we record, and a week where literally nothing happened. Since Mike Shildt has been hired, nothing happened. Nothing. Flatline. No Padres news. We are still going to generate a show out of all of this, gentlemen. Welcome, and how are you?
Doing splendidly. The Padres did announce a grant, the Peter Seidler Foundation, and they're going to match contributions for the first $1 million for underserved communities in San Diego and Baja. But that's when you're leading with on the Padres Hot Tub, it's November, baby, and I'm happy for it. I'm happy for the respite, but boy, oh boy, could I use some free agency juice.
Yeah, couple things. One, Chris, you buried the lead a little bit there. There's going to be a jersey patch, a Peter Seidler jersey patch.
Yeah, yes, of course.
Yeah, I think in Padres lore, an owner jersey patch the season after an owner dying, people, you got it's pretty cool. People want a little bit of that 1984 kind of feeling, and it seems like they're at least gonna embody that a little bit. And listen, no, nothing really happened other than that. But I think that the three of us could talk for an hour watching paint dry. So I'm truly not worried about.
Oh yeah, I've got patch opinions already. The one in Twitter with the interlocking PNS was terrible. I like the heart one. That one's adorable. So we can start there if you'd like.
No. Listen, I want to be clear about this. This is not going to be a jerk off podcast. We're not going to spend an hour talking about, like our vacation plans or something like a particular #1 rated sports talk radio show did this morning. A shout out to my beloved Ben and Woods, but they had nothing to talk about, and they spent 2 hours talking about Woods' vacation plans. Like, we're not going to do that. We've come up with some legit content that people are going to enjoy. Or at least imbibe and consider, because we're going to be actually giving you names on this show of players, pitchers specifically, that we think maybe the Padres could take a swing at. So that's coming up. Stay tuned. Very, very brief housekeeping to get things started. Of course, the best way to support this show is by becoming a patron, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. It costs just $5 a month on the entry level. Some people pay a little bit more. Those people get tons of benefits. There are benefits throughout the year to being a patron. The number one is to be on our Discord, which is a far more pleasant social media space that will still give you the engagement on the topics that you are interested in. I think that's been the biggest problem with the death of X, is that you go to Threads or you go to Blue Sky, but no one's talking Padres. You can't get the sports information real time that you're looking for. It's kind of an empty space, except for people criticizing politics. So Discord, you get it all. You get movie talk, you get Wordle talk, you get Padres talk, you get MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL, soccer, everything. So absolutely a huge benefit. Plus, you're part of our community. So here's 2 community events coming up. We talked about it on previous shows. Our PHT watch party for November. We are getting it in the month of November. It is we've looked it up, highly critically reviewed 1992 movie, Mr. Baseball, starring Tom Selleck. Now, the quality of those reviews, you can go to Rotten Tomatoes yourself and check it out. This may be the lowest rated movie that I have voluntarily watched in my life, but we are going to be watching Mr. Baseball together this Wednesday, November 29th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We are all going to click rent because it's going to cost you $4, $3.50 if it's on $3.50 on Roku to rent Mr. Baseball. You cannot stream it anywhere. You're going to have to rent it. But listen, patrons, you voted for this, so you're paying for this. Don't come to me asking for a $4 Venmo. We're all going to click play at 6:30. We're going to watch this wonderful film that I'm sure is not anachronistic at all. And then we're going to talk about it on a live watch party on our Padres Hot Tub Discord channel, on our group therapy stage, or our post-game show stage, whichever one. So check that out. That's this Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. And if you don't watch the movie, you'll get to listen to the podcast and hear what we all had to say about it. Lastly, we finally did make an executive decision, and indeed, our Padres Hot Tub holiday party is going to be December 22nd at the Till 2 Club, prior to the 9 p.m. Tim Capello concert, which is $5. So it's going to cost you $5 to get inside the Till 2 Club. They make very good cocktails. They have a heavy pour. The beers are fine. They're on tap. And we're going to be there. It's a PHT takeover of the Till 2 Club. You're going to have to fight with all the Tim Capello fans. Will there be a Tim Capello cosplayer in the crowd? That's what I want to know. Will someone show up December 22nd at night, suntanned and shirtless, with a bike chain around their neck, Levi's,
Sinley Foods chicken grease?
Exactly. Just go across the street to Sinley Foods, get all oiled up. It's not supposed to be food oil. It's
it's not?
You can just try that.
I've always assumed.
Just cover yourself in truffle oil and head on into the Till 2 Club. See what happens. Make memories. Make friends. So that is going to be December 22nd, and we hope to see a ton of you there. We do. This is an incredible community, and I'm so thankful, and I'll say this after Thanksgiving week, like we said last week, I'm so thankful for our community. I'm so thankful for everybody who stays with us through the offseason, including everyone listening to our free feed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Padres hired a manager last week. We covered it. Go back, listen to the last podcast. My opinion has not changed in the silent days that have followed, in which no one said anything. On to other teams doing things. Today, this morning, Monday, November 27th, the St. Louis Cardinals, who had previously drawn guffaws of derision for signing Major League home run allowed leader Lance Lynn, and I think Major League hits allowed leader Kyle Gibson, because I remember seeing someone in our Discord saying that with Gibson, Michaelis, and Lynn, they had like the poopy triple crown of like runs, homers, and hits allowed. All in their rotation, working together. And it was like, cool, the Cardinals are going to be really bad because they signed all bad pitchers. But then they signed a good pitcher. Today they signed Sonny Gray, and Sonny Gray got paid. 3 years, $75 million. Sonny Gray had 2 back-to-back very good years with the Minnesota Twins. He's in his early 30s. 3 years, not a tough commitment. Good, solid commitment for the Cardinals. I'm curious to both of your guys' reactions to this. Both, I mean, I don't really care. This isn't, Cardinals cold dip. We don't need to worry about them too much. But I don't know why I picked cold dip either. But nonetheless, like, as it relates to the baseball market, it appears to me this is going to be the going rate for any pitcher that we would call quote unquote good.
Yeah, at least 25 per, and then the better you are, the closer you are to 30, the more years get added on. It had to make Blake Snell really stoked at the end of a really great weekend for him. He was the 12th man at the Seahawks game, and then he got to ring the siren or whatnot at UW's game. I just saw his social media. He was just had a giant smile plastered on his face all weekend. And I'm sure he woke up this morning and it got just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, probably. Go ahead.
We texted about this a little bit earlier today when this deal came across the wire. And, Sonny Gray was someone who obviously was very successful the last few seasons. I think he put up over 10 WAR combined in the last 3 seasons. This deal wagers that he's going to put up something like 8 or 9 WAR, somewhere in that range in the next 3 years. That would be, the deal, quote unquote, paying for itself. And I think he's fully capable of that. Like one really good year out of those 3 kind of cements that he needs to be just okay for the other 2, and he's fine. But he will need to be available and that's important. He will need to play all 3 years for this contract really to make sense. And as we mentioned, Sonny Gray is 34, just turned 34. So he's someone who's going to be playing out, I don't know if he has another bigger contract in him. He almost certainly doesn't. So I think that, the Cardinals certainly kind of, I don't want to say painted themselves into a corner because they made these signings of their own volition, but I think that they knew that they couldn't just finish up their free agent signing class with Lynn and Gibson. And so they were going to have to make something of a splash. So yes, I don't know that we have anything new per se based on this deal from a market standpoint, just kind of confirmation of what we already know.
Sonny Gray finished second in the American League Cy Young, distant second to Garrett Cole. Obviously, I don't think they're super comparable seasons, but Gray got to 184 innings. His FIP was 283, which led the league, but really his value was derived by a career low home run allowed rate. He allowed 8 homers in 184 innings, 0.4 homers per 9 innings. Minnesota's a pretty tough place to hit it out compared to some other places, and I don't know that rate will stay with St. Louis. I certainly wouldn't bet on it staying. And also Sonny Gray being, as you mentioned, Raphie, 34, also 5'10". He's had 3 different really good years in his career, 3 different years where he earned Cy Young votes, and they were spaced neatly 4 years apart, 2015, 2019, and 2023. So based on that, the team that signs him for his age 38 season will get the next All-Star year from Sonny Gray, and the Cardinals will suffer for 3 years in between. But this, guys, is so illustrative of this market this year, which is a really weird market to me. And I think it's kind of like the setup for our discussion for the rest of the podcast, because when I see most of the signings so far this year, my reaction has been good. Wouldn't want to sign him at that price to that deal. Glad someone else did it. Someone else's mistake, not our mistake. And that feeling, that kind of almost contract schadenfreude, it's a great feeling for a while until all the players disappear from the board and you don't have any of them. And then you're like, oh, maybe I don't feel as good about our prudent decision-making because we don't have anybody. Matt Waldron is still our third starter. So would either of you have been psyched to hear this morning that the Padres signed Sonny Gray to a 3-year, $75 million deal?
I mean, yeah, because he's a solid pitcher and he fills a major hole. I'm surprised it was the Cardinals doing this, because the Cardinals seemed really intent on cutting costs and doing the whole rebuilding route in a division that was getting more competitive with the Reds coming on, the Cubs investing a lot of money into their team, and even the Pirates maybe being a little splashy. So yeah, I would have been happy because Sonny Gray, he's a stud. Like you said, 180 innings goes a long way to filling the 500 or so the Padres need. It would have been extremely surprising considering that Blake Snell might be around the same AAV, and there's other guys that I might want them to compete with, compete for in that ace number one stud starting pitcher spot. And it would have been surprising because I don't think they're going to compete for any of those guys. So yeah, surprises equals, happiness in this case.
And Rafe, just a stat to kind of lock it in as I toss this back to you, like Sonny Gray, 184 innings last year. The previous 3 years, working backwards, 119 2/3, 135 1/3, 56, and then 175. And then working back from that, 130 1/3, 65 1/3, 97, and then 162. And then 117. Since his age 24-25 seasons in 2014-2015, when Sonny Gray for the A's had 219 and then 208 innings pitched, it's been this roller coaster of a healthy season, 3 unhealthy seasons, a healthy season, 3 unhealthy seasons, and a healthy season. So I'm psyched they didn't sign him, because signing 3 unhealthy seasons sounds like a really bad idea.
Yeah. And Chris, you said this over text today, but the Cardinals spent $45 million on pitching next year, and they got Lynn, Gibson, and Gray, which, like, if we had spent $45 million on that combo, I would not be super stoked.
Sure.
And Sonny Gray at $25 million per. I mean, it would surprise me for a couple of reasons. One, it would go against every indication that we've gotten from the front office that they're going to make that type of move. It seems more like we're going to be going for the bargain bin, which it's going to be the main topic of later in the episode. But I don't know, like 34, so a pitcher who historically has not been. This isn't Michael Wacha we're talking about, who has been historically unhealthy, but was 4 years younger than him at the time. This is an entirely different beast. This is a guy who, Saris has talked about, pitchers don't break, they fall off cliffs. I think it's Saris. Maybe it's Dan Szymborski. But one of them.
Saris did like this deal, by the way.
Did like this deal. Okay. In the sense that it was a value play, or in the sense that, like, it's just kind of in line with what we would expect?
He liked it for the Cardinals, seeing as it was actually trying to do something, and he thought that the number was right at market value with how he projects age-wise. It's like right in line with a little bit of fall off with as he ages.
Yeah. I think it's in line with market value. It's just that market value is cray-cray.
Yeah.
Like, market value this year is pitchers get overpaid. Step up if you want a pitcher, and it's a deathly market. Well, here's the thing, Rafe. I get nervous anytime any team signs a plus 30-year-old to a multi-year contract, because the odds are that player is going to regress. Now, I say that as the host of a show covering the Padres, which signed 2 30-plus-year-olds to 10-year contracts last year, both of which I am extremely concerned about. So, just understanding that base, I get worried about this for any pitchers. So, like, man, it's tough. Like, the team that signs Blake Snell, the team that signs anyone other than Yamamoto is dealing with a 30-something-year-old that could decline, but is being paid as if he is in the prime of their career.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that's the point. Like, the market is not where you're going to get a deal. Like, you're going to get a deal like in arbitration and like with younger players, and that's the whole reason that the labor system is constructed the way it is. Any good compromise, both sides are a little unhappy. So and I think that's the nature of the pitching market. I think what's so interesting, Craig, is you were talking about a feeling of that, that the market is overpaying for pitchers. But one of the things that's been mentioned is that this is an incredibly pitcher rich market. The deficiency this year is in hitters. It's like, who are the best hitters on the market outside of Shohei Ohtani? Like Cody Bellinger? ? Like,
right.
Heimer Candelario.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that there's still a feeling of there being a surplus. I think part of it is also just that there's more money in baseball generally as time goes on too. So, like, the prices, of course, are going to naturally go up. But yeah, I mean, anyone in their 30s is a declining asset. So, go ahead, Chris.
Just to if the Padres had signed Sonny Gray, it would have been a sign that we're heading towards another year where every single thing reported about the payroll was wrong. So It's kind of like, all right, we're back into crazy offseason AJ Preller. And, that's the hypothetical of it. Is I so doubt we're going to see anything like that. We're going to see nowhere near Sonny Gray.
Well, speaking of which, this is a perfect point to transition, Chris, because let's go to the other starter who signed a contract today. Kenta Maeda signed a 2-year, $24 million contract with the Detroit Tigers. This is another Twins pitcher that is vacating the starting rotation in Minnesota. And by the way, the Twins, not for nothing, have been informed that Bally Sports North will not be paying their bills next year, and that they are losing $50 million that they thought they had, and that they are intending to cut their payroll by essentially the amount that they are losing in television revenue this year. So is that our lot in life too? Maybe. Maybe it is. But when I see now, let me just say this. Kenta Maeda at 2 years, $24 million, that seems pretty affordable. Like, okay, that seems like a pretty decent deal. But when we talk about Michael Wacha, because I do kind of want to drive this to Michael Wacha in a small way. You guys just mentioned Michael Wacha in the Sonny Gray discussion. I gave you those innings totals. Look at Michael Wacha's innings totals the last 3 years, and they're all within 15 innings of one another. Like 130-ish, one high 120-ish.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about the same. Like you get baked in a 6-week stint on the IL, but you also get 130 or 125 innings. With Gray, roll the dice. 180, 65, 110. All of these are potential results for Sonny Gray. Well, Kenta Maeda is very much in the same boat, right? He completely missed 2022 due to injury. He came back last year. He threw 104 innings as a part-time 20-game starter. The full year he had before that, 2021, he threw 106 innings as a 20-game starter. His ERAs those 2 years were 4.6 and 4.2, and he got 2 years, $24 million, which really makes this is the question. I'm laying that all out to come back to you and put the question back to you. 2 years, $32 million for the guarantee of Michael Wacha in this year's market kind of feels like that was a good deal.
Is it a deal they can do though? Can they drop $16 million on a 3-4 pitcher? And I don't think the Padres can.
Well, it also feels like a deal that a team that's scared makes, which is that it's a defensive deal of saying like, well, like we don't know, and like, you know, 16 million, like it's maybe a little bit of an overpay, but like who knows? And 2 years and $24 million for Kenta Maeda I would take that deal in a heartbeat, I think, like, because you're basically wagering that he's going to be he just needs to get like 1.5 WAR each of those 2 years. And if he throws 100 innings, which you obviously want him to throw more, but he throws 100 innings the way that he pitches, he's going to hit that number. So, I have the Fangraphs article that was published upon his signing today pulled up, and they said that Steamer, which is one of their projection systems, has Maeda penciled in for 132 innings, a 4.15 ERA, and that works out to 2 WAR. And I would take that. I would take that from Maeda. So, while I think Gray certainly gives us info for the top of market, I think like we're going to see someone like Wacha signed for an AAV that is not dissimilar with Maeda, maybe just a little bit longer. I'm paying more attention to these type of deals because these are the type of deals that I think the Padres are going to make than the Sonny Gray type deals.
I really feel like they're going to be going even a notch lower. And that's what, if they're not looking to add to the team via trade, if they're paying market rate for free agencies, even like the 10 to 15 market isn't where they're going to be looking. And Maeda is coming off a Tommy John 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago.
Correct.
I know he did pretty strong this year, but that elbow has been surgically repaired recently, and he's also getting a little bit older. I don't mind them letting Maeda go to Detroit and replace Erod.
But you guys both led me into this pretty well. I wrote 2 lines in our menu here. The first one I feel like we can go by very quickly and then hop to the second one. Is it fair to say, this is the first one, is it fair to say the Padres will not this year, this offseason, be able to afford any of the top tier defined as Sonny Gray or above, 25 million or above pitchers on the market? Can we all just agree we're not going to get any of those guys?
Unless an outfielder gets traded.
I think that if they are in a position to get Yamamoto, they'll figure it out. I think that AJ Preller allegedly met with him already. I think that they're making a play for that market. And I think And I suspect that the more likely situation is that we go for the Shota Imanaga sort of level, which you might be able to get something more like Kodai Senga's contract, which I believe is like 5 years and $75 million. But I don't think that they will be in the market for Yamamoto. But if some miracle happens, like, I think that they will potentially be aggressive there.
I think it's more likely they get Shohei Ohtani, and I think that's like never going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with Chris. I think considering that Yamamoto is being courted by the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees specifically, we're out on Yamamoto because the price is going to start at $30 million and 8 seasons, and it's probably going to go up from there because Steve Cohen's in the room. Steve Cohen's got one of the paddles to keep jerking the price up. So, I mean, I don't disagree with your thinking in terms of like, we've got that Far East connection. And if there was going to be a player we'd spend on, it might be him. But literally that's what everyone is saying in baseball. He's 25 and he's on the market. So he's going to be, I honestly think he's going to be the second most expensive free agent this year after Shohei Ohtani. I think it's going to be Ohtani. And then I think it's going to be Yamamoto.
I agree with you. There's 2 counterpoints that I'll make. One, there's some reporting that's come out that he wants to be on the West Coast, which was the same reporting that happened for Shohei Ohtani and wound up being true. 2, apparently he wants to go to players or to a team that already have Japanese players. That's not true.
That was a lost in translation moment. What he was trying to get across is that he is fine with playing with other Japanese players because I guess they're also like beta fish. And in the past, either Hideki Matsui or one of these guys said, no, I don't want to play with other Japanese players, whether it's having to share a translator or whatever. Something rubs them the wrong way with it. So there had been like this stigma that Japanese players like to be the sole Japanese player on a team. And in an interview, he said he doesn't mind playing with other Japanese players. And that got kind of turned into he wants to go somewhere with a Japanese player. We're covered either way, but
yeah,
right.
Just 2 other quick points. One, you mentioned the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are in on him. Coincidentally, those are all the teams that Juan Soto might get traded to. There's a reason that those teams are reported as such because their media markets are huge, and that reporting gets clicks. So anything that where Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are listed as the top competitor, I always take that with a grain of salt. I'm sure that they are. I'm sure they'd love to have him. And they would love to have him for the final reason that I'll say I'm not quite giving up hope, even though I agree it's not likely. But if they are in the conversation, if Yamamoto's agent is picking up their calls, the reason why you go and get a Yamamoto is it's a lot different overpaying for Yamamoto than it is for Blake Snell or for any of these other pitchers because he's so young. He's an improving asset. And so I just like I agree they're not going to go for Blake Snell. I agree they're not going to go. Aaron Nola's already off the board, so I don't know how many other top pitchers there are. But like, it's just such these guys don't come around that often, and so it's just such a different conversation to say, oh, we're completely out. I'm probably crazy and taking crazy pills, but and my own judgment and bias and desire is getting in the way. But I don't know. So that's where I'll leave that.
Well, I'll just reverse it in this way because I'll drive to the second point. There is always a danger in doing these exercises. I think it's very important to recognize that danger when you speak about it because otherwise you're doing something in bad faith intellectually. Okay? So we don't know the Padres number. That's a known unknown, to go back to our buddy Rummy, right? We don't know the Padres number. I spent an entire season, I think it was 2021 with John, where the reporting at the beginning of the year was they will not go over the luxury tax. They will not. And so I put that as a filter on everything. And John would say something. I go, hang on, put the filter on. We've only got $1.3 million before we get to the tax. So you can't do it because we're not going to get there. And then what did they do? They traded for Jake Marisnick and they went over the tax. Now, was that singularly one of the stupidest moves in the history of the Padres and potentially a firing offense? Yes, it was. You could have fired A.J. Preller for that alone. You could have fired A.J. Preller, and it would have been fine to do so. But my point being, we don't know their number. The other thing we don't know, that more of an unknown, do the Padres know? what their number is?
I think they do. I think Major League Baseball gave it to them in that meeting, that your debt service is here. It needs to be here. We're looking at you as a payer into revenue sharing. We're looking at you as a payer of the competitive balance tax. And I'll be 2021 Craig here, man. That's what I think the number is. I think it's $237 million, a competitive balance tax, because that gives the team a chance to reset all the penalties associated with it. It allows them to wipe off that truly dead money that they can't borrow against, that the MLB has handcuffed them against. That's what I'm putting it at. That's what my idiot assumption is lying.
Well, Raphie, we know that the number. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the payroll and the luxury tax are two different things. The payroll reporting has been $200 million, but their luxury tax is gonna be higher because of the AAV on some of their bigger deals.
This fucked me up so bad because I had been assuming that Manny was paid the same amount for all year. I thought his contract structure was 30 something a year with the $2 million bonus or whatever, and it is not.
It's not.
Correct. Yeah, it's less now.
Like 14 million with like a 5 bonus. Like it is really low. So that payroll number is artificially low against the CBT number, and
it's very difficult.
In a tough spot.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult because that leads to the last point before we get to our lists, which is I'm kind of going back to what Chris said earlier, Rafe. I'm not sure the Padres can afford any mid-tier starter if the reporting is correct. Tevin, stop edging. Just back off, dude. Go watch a movie. Go watch a movie. Go cook some popcorn. Do something else, Tev. Okay.
Take a cold shower.
Just chill, man. Chill. Think about Fernando Valenzuela's career FIP. Okay, just relax. If this all is true, how do they sign Kenta Maeda? How do they sign Michael Wacha? How do they sign Seth Lugo? How do they sign anybody? Because they're like right up against 200 million, but they're kind of right up against that 237 as well. The CBT number is dastardly because no matter what you set the yearly salaries at for Manny and Tatis and Xander and everyone, it's the average that gets through for the CBT calculation. So I am concerned. Okay. Is it concerned trolling? Quite possibly. But I am concerned that we don't even have kind of the NBA mid-level exception available for this year's team. That we are only looking at cast-offs, trades, underline and highlight trades, and bargain basement scrapers to fill out, half of our pitching staff? Like easily half of our pitching staff? Might be the case. So that with that, let's transition. What I've asked each of the guys to do, and I've done it myself, is come up with a couple of names that would at least theoretically fit into this one way or another. Maybe getting up to mid-level, but hopefully below that, of pitchers that maybe actually AJ Preller could target via trade or via free agency. So we've each come up with at least a couple. I think some of the boys have added a couple of bonus rounds as well. I've come up with 2. So I put myself at the top of the list. So let's just start with my first of 2. And this would truly be, to me, guys, if it happened, a bold move, a buy low, and something that really fits in the AJ Preller portfolio. Okay? And that would be
it's some person from Turkey, isn't
it? Exactly. That is Toronto Blue Jays 25-year-old right-hander and former first-round draft pick, number 11 overall, Alek Manoah.
I fucking hate it. I hate it so much.
I love it so much.
Oh, I can't wait to get...
No, talk. I have a really, really base and dumb reason for not liking this deal, but I will sit.
No, I want that one first.
Okay. What's the base dumb reason?
He's an asshole. He's such an asshole. He's like verifiably like the lights are too bright, like can't handle like the criticism, like wouldn't show up for when he got rehab assigned, and like just like couldn't like take his licks and be humble at all. Gotten fights online with people. Like, now, people were very mean to him. I don't want to discount any of those things. People were very mean to him about many things, including his physical appearance, which are things that people should not joke about. Like, it's like, I don't think any of what he had to endure was okay. But also, he did react in a certain way. And I think we have, like, one would call a precarious locker room situation after last season. And the last thing I want to do is throw a little chili pepper in the cookie jar. So that's my reason for it.
Guess what, Rafe? You know what? Reliable, dependable, locked down, veteran, easy to assimilate pitchers cost? $28 million. All right? We're looking for business bargains. We're looking in the bargain bin, and that means you're going to need to get through some sticky stuff, okay? And I don't mean the spider tack. And that brings me back to Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah is 25. He's 25 years old, okay? So, not a 32-year-old declining asset, a 25-year-old. In his age 23 and 24 seasons, Alek Manoah was a top 10 Rookie of the Year candidate, finished third in the American League Cy Young voting, was an All-Star, finished top 20 in American League MVP voting in 2022, won 16 games with a 2.24 ERA, and threw almost 200 innings, 196 innings. Now, look, he was on my fantasy team last year. I'm a Blue Jays fan. I followed Alek Manoah very closely, and Alek Manoah fucking fell apart last year. What happened? Let's talk about it specifically. He couldn't throw his slider for a strike at the beginning of the year. Alek Manoah is one of the number one slider usage pitchers in baseball. In 2022, his slider was a wipeout pitch, was an effective pitch. He couldn't locate it at the beginning of 2023. It was a bounce or it was a hanger. And then he got to his fastball. He got in his head. He was terrible. He lost all his starts. They sent him to single A. This was a guy who appeared in the All-Star game in 2022. They didn't send him to AAA. They sent him to single A, like Ron Gant, if you remember that, back to 30 years ago. They sent him to single A. And yeah, he resisted that. I'm not going to make excuses for Alek Manoah. I'm sure he was an asshole. I'm sure he was petulant and immature and everything else. He's 25. But this kid can throw the pill. And like, I remember being on vacation listening pitch by pitch to his return outing when he came back and faced Detroit and started to throw strikeouts. And like, he was a little bit wobbly, but he was there. This is a sell. This is a buy low opportunity for AJ Preller and the Padres because Toronto fans are down on Alek Manoah. Toronto faithful are down on Alek Manoah. And as such, you might not have to trade a Jairo Iriarte, Robbie Snelling, Jackson Merrill, Adam Mazur. You might not have to trade any of those dudes to get Alek Manoah, bring him over here, hand him to Niebla, say, fix my boy, positivity from Mike Shildt, like turn it around, and you might have a 188 inning, 15 win, sub 3 RA pitcher. Like, literally might be the key to the championship, is getting somebody like this. Sometimes you have to take a chance, and I would take a chance on Alek Manoah. If you didn't have to give up the farm for him, I would take a chance on Alek Manoah. He is young, affordable, and fucking talented. Like, Triple Crown for me. I'm in on Alek Manoah.
I love this for all the reasons you just said, dude. He has undergone a manager change. The Blue Jays have been a mess. They've been dealing with disappointment basically year in and year out. The change of scenery is a huge plus in the deal. And I'm not going to get into like the potential pieces of each trade in each one. But for the Blue Jays, there's a clear fit for a guy the Padres are talking about moving. That's our boy Trent Grisham. They need a defensive first center fielder and a left-handed bat in their lineup. It makes sense for all the reasons about Alek Manoah's capability, and it makes even more sense when you look at who the Padres could send to get him. And his CBT number would be nothing. I think he's in his last year of pre-arb. It is a slam dunk if they can make it happen. And it may not work out as a slam dunk, but it's just one of those ones that makes so much sense that if it did happen, I would feel like the Padres were using their heads.
I just don't think. Okay, couple things.
And on the scale of assholes, by the way, of free agent pitcher assholes, he's like a 3 out of 5. Like there are some 5s out there that could keep people from coming to fucking ball games. And Alek Manoah is not one
in
of
Japan
them.
For sure. Yeah.
So the thing about Alek Manoah is that he is not scheduled to become a free agent until 2028. So, which is awesome. Like, that's great. But that also means that I don't think he's going to be as cheap as one would hope that he would be. Like, I think, like,
he's a single A pitcher.
If he shows
that's
up,
what I mean,
if he shows up to pitch.
But that's what I mean, Rafe. Like you've got a unique opportunity right now. They're never going to be as mad at Alek Manoah as they are right now. If he shows up at spring training 25 pounds lighter, with does a good interview with somebody at the Toronto Star, and then throws 4 shutout innings in his first 2 spring training appearances, he will immediately be untouchable in the Blue Jays system. And if he does that for us, like, he'll be untouchable in our system. But right now, this minute, people are pissed at him. And so it could be like, hey, let me help you out here. Right? You just brought up Grisham. Kiermaier, I assume, is a free agent. They just put up
with
a Gold Glove
Varsho,
defensive. What's that?
They just traded for Dalton Varsho.
They do have Dalton
defensive
Varsho,
first center fielder, and they have George Springer.
Well, he hits better than Grisham would, and like they could have a great defensive outfield in a spacious Rogers Center.
Yeah, and Varsho, by the way, had a terrible year last year in Toronto, and they played him in the corners.
They also need second base, by the way.
Yes, they do. I mean, don't. Now I'm going to be the one that's edging if you tell me that we can trade Grisham and Cronenworth and get Alek Manoah. I got a box of tissue paper right here, boys. Right here. Okay.
This is okay. We need to reel this back in for a second. So let's go on the no good, very bad baseball trade values website right now.
It's a terrible website.
It's so bad. It's just going to ruin the discussion.
They're saying Alek Manoah is equivalent to Samuel Zavala.
Done. Farewell. Farewell,
bye-bye.
my young man.
Bye-bye, Sammy.
You're driving Sammy Zavala to the airport?
Yeah, he's parking him at Wally Park.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sammy. Bye-bye. Goodbye. See you later. I'm down for that today.
Yeah, man.
Done.
No second thoughts.
Done. Goodbye, Sammy. I hope you're an all-star in 6 years in Toronto. I do. We'll be set. All right, Chris, you're next on the list. Who's your first guy up?
All right, my first guy up, since we're talking about potential aces, I'll get right to that one, right? Because that's what Alek Manoah is, and he's gotten Cy Young votes. So I'll go ahead and load for bear with my first one. There's a lot of talk about Brewers aces becoming available. Brandon Woodworth just got non-tendered and hit the free agent market. He's not going to pitch next year, so he doesn't really help us. And then you have Corbin Burns, who, Cy Young winner, general stud, but he's going to make a lot of money in his last year of arbitration, so he's not who I'm talking about either. Instead, I am going to talk about Freddy Peralta. He put up 165 innings last year while making just about $3.5 million with bonuses. Next year, he's going to make about $5.5–6 million, and then his contract is for a club option of $8 million per for the next 2. He's a total stud. He misses bats like crazy. He's in the top 90% of both whiff and K percentage. He's an absolute beast on the hill. He's the guy that would compete with our Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish immediately for the ace on the staff. And the Brewers are a team that happens to love prospects. They happen to love Padres prospect. They've proven a willing trade partner in the David Stearns regime. So I have a feeling they do the same now. Freddy Peralta would be my guy if you're trying to fill that number one young guy spot. That's the way to do it. He's only 27 years old right now. I'd imagine he's going to be 28 at the start of next year.
Raphie, what do you think Freddy Peralta would cost AJ in terms of prospect haul? We're getting out. This is not an Alek Manoah situation. You're going to have to pay.
No, this is Jackson Merrill and someone else. I think.
See, I don't think it's going to cost you Jackson Merrill because I don't think you deal from your position side first. I think you send them an arm.
It's going to cost you Lesko and Snelling.
At least Lesko.
Both.
I don't think it's
for 2 years.
Both.
Yeah, it's not 2 years. It's 3 years. It's 3 years. He's under control for 2024, 2025, and 2026. And he's slated to make $5.5 million this year, $8 million next year, and $8 million the year after that. He is incredibly cheap for his prime years. He's very, very good, and he's very, very cheap. He, from a payroll standpoint, is exactly who the Padres would be going after, but you would be selling the farm on him. So again, it always comes down to what. Sure, I would love to make the trade. What is it going to cost? If it's going to cost you Snelling and Lesko, I mean, you're really going like fuck the farm, fuck anything past 2024 to 2025. I guess you can say, but that's so. It all just depends on what it costs. I think it's a great call, Chris. He's exactly the type of player I'd be interested in, but I just think it's going to be really expensive.
It is going to be really expensive, and I fully realize that you're having to trade one of your top two arms in your organization, be it Lesko or Snelling. I'm not sure it's going to cost both of them because they also need young infielders. They don't have anybody. We have Eggy Rosario. Sorry, boys. I got that Hawaii cough. We've got Graham Pauley, who just had a breakout season at AAA last year. We have young infielders that the Brewers could covet. Package them with some, 5 to 15. You are going to move a lot of pieces to get Freddy Peralta, but I think it's within reason and they're not going to hold you hostage for the top 3 of your top 5.
I agree, and I just want to say, as a generic, it is one of the biggest canards that I always fight against in these hypothetical discussions is that we, the plebes, the outsiders, we always look at the top of the list. And we always go, well, it's going to take the number 1 guy or the number 2 guy or the number 1 and 3 guys. And the GMs know the guys they like from 4 to 15 on your prospect rankings. And so I don't always think it's going to take the very, very, very top. So, I mean, look, it's all a hypothetical. So I can go, Raphie, you're wrong. They won't cost. And you can go, it'll cost them all and a bag of chips. None of us know. But I don't know that Freddy Peralta ain't Blake Snell 2 years ago. You know what I mean? And Blake Snell 2 years ago didn't cost the Padres their number 1 prospects or their top 2 prospects. He was maybe a better pitcher arm. Patino was pretty close to that. And guess what that cost the Padres? Absolutely nothing. Luis Patino didn't pan out. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. So if you tell me that we trade a pitching prospect for a guy who's an established pitcher, that's a good deal. Like almost every time, that's a good deal. Especially when, and you guys brought it up, I was a little confused, but looking it up, Freddy Peralta is actually set for free agency after next year, except on the contract he signed, there are back-to-back $8 million team-only options.
Exactly.
So as long as he pitches decent, obviously you pick those up.
Yeah. Listen, if you were to say it costs you Snelling or Lesko and then some other filler, yeah, of course, sure, absolutely. I just don't like if I'm the Brewers and I'm trying to cut costs, but I'm not trying to completely punt. I mean, they made the playoffs this year and they lost Woodruff, sure, but I mean, like they still have Burns, they still have a lot of their other guys. Who knows who they actually move on from and trade, et cetera. They have Sal Frelick, they have some young guys who are talented. If they're selling Peralta, it's part of they're selling Burns too. It's part of a much, much larger teardown.
But their GM has said they're open for business, like sign out. Like, I think they're one of the few teams that kind of fit that mold.
Also, AJ is look, for all the times I rip AJ, there are certain times I believe in AJ. These are kind of those spots where like he might go out and set it up as a trade proposal for Burns. And then get to a price point that is like, and go, well, let's back this off. What about Peralta? And because if you're going to set a price of this for Burns, it can't be the same price for Peralta. Like Burns is better than Peralta.
Yeah, so, but the control, 3 years.
But it's the control and the price. Burns is going to make $15 million this year. Peralta is going to make $5.5. It's a big.
That's why I'm trying not to get too much in the cost for each one of these. It's just that he is the ideal guy for the Padres situation of needing a low CBT number. The CBT number is even small because those club options, according to Spot Track, I kind of remember one of the options counting against CBT and not the other. The club options, they say, does not count against the CBT this year. So his CBT number for 2024 would be $3.1 million. Which is
it's obviously ideal. Okay, those are two great pitchers that if the Padres traded for either one of them, they're getting cost certainty, they're getting years of control, they're getting value, and they're getting a young arm that you can absolutely project on. Raphie, I'd like you to add another log to the pile. Who would you like to add?
Yeah, so since you guys did your trade candidates, I'll do my trade candidate now, and then I have a free agent candidate later. My trade candidate is Mitch Keller from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Thing about Mitch Keller, he's 30 years old, and he is going to be expensive because of exactly the reason Peralta is expensive. He has 2 years of team control left in arbitration. He's set to make $6.8 million this year. I would expect that he probably makes $10 million in his final year of arbitration unless he, wins the Cy Young or, gets Cy Young votes or something like that. That's probably a pretty safe bet. He put up 3.3 WAR last year. Most important to me, he pitched 194 innings last year. And in the year before, he put up 2.1 WAR, also important to me, in 159 innings pitched. So he's consistent. He posts. He is putting up these similar numbers. And important, he plays on the Pirates, who are historically very cheap as fuck. This is exactly the time in his, Pirates career that Bob Nutting would be, selling on Mitch Keller. I ran all the, Fangraphs valuation stuff, et cetera, of like, okay, what would this cost? Arguably a 1-for-1 for Lesko or Snelling would probably get you, more likely Lesko would probably get you Mitch Keller. So it's that question of, do you take 2 years of a workhorse in the time that you're trying to be competitive for a guy who is either going to be very good or may never pan out because there's no such thing as a pitching prospect? And it's a trade that I would be interested in making. He slots in, I think he's going to give you numbers that are comparable to Musgrove. And so I think adding another one of those guys in the team for 2024 and 2025 is great. Lesko is far away. He's not going to help you not only next year, he's not going to help you next year, and he's not going to help you in 2025. He's probably not going to help you until 2026. So, this is a win now move. It's a move that we've seen Preller make lots of times. It's really like right in line with the AJ Preller philosophy of being a general manager. So, I think it's worth looking into.
I love that one, dude.
Yeah. Honestly, any of those three pitchers, if the Padres make a trade for one guy like that, and they have to send out one or two important prospects along the way. Look, we did a whole podcast a month or two ago called "Can You Break the Cycle Without Breaking the Window?" I think we've gotten to our answer with Peter Seidler's death. I think the answer is no. I don't think you can break the cycle without breaking the window. And what I mean by that is break the cycle of trading your prospects for cost-controllable, established major league players. The thing that we did so many times in 2020 and 21 to take our system from number 1 to number 21. and now it's back into the top 10. And we argued that at some point, the Padres must break the cycle in order to regain flexibility, in order to regain their ability to operate competitively under the tax, in order to not pay every single player on your team $12 million or more. All of that remains true. But breaking the cycle right now really feels like breaking the window and making 2024 a year that we just agree, we're not going to compete. We're going to take Manny's 32 and Xander's 31 years, age 31, age 32 years, and just punt them and hopefully recalibrate in 25 and 26, et cetera. Like, I don't think we can afford to do that. AJ's not going to do that because his ass will be out the door, and it'll be on the next GM to, hey, great, you broke the cycle. Now next GM, you get to deal with it. AJ's making some trades and he's moving some prospects. It's the only way that we get a pitcher that allows us to be a competitive team next year.
Yeah, it's felt coming for a little while, and just on Mitch Keller, the dude pitched like a Cy Young candidate for the first half of last year, and he has 2 new pitchers in the sinker and sweeper that I know Ruben Niebla and the PLNU lab would have way more capability of enhancing than whatever friggin' Pittsburgh's paying for out by the river. So, and Joe Musgrove knows the guy. So it would be a familiar situation coming in. What I did last on my first OOTP run, guess what I did? I traded Jake Cronenworth for Mitch Keller. I would love the move. It fits perfectly. And the free agent market, there's nothing like that at that number. At $10 million for the next 2 years, it's not happening on the free agent market. AJ Preller, like you said, Craig, this is what he does. He finds talent that other people find valuable, that is valuable. And if you're just going to hold on to it and hoard it and let the club die on the vine while signing the absolute dregs, the Julio Terrans, and under that model, Julio Terran would have been starting opening day last year, and that might have been okay. Not in starting opening day, but he would have been on the roster opening day.
Yeah.
That might have been fine. That might have worked out. But he didn't get a full season of work in. Neither did Vince Velasquez or any of the other pile that he would have had to have pulled from.
I just want to say, by the way, I misspoke. Mitch Keller is currently 27. He's going to be 28 on opening day next year. So that's his age.
All right. Well, we just gave you 3 different trade candidates of sub 30-year-old pitchers who would be extremely affordable. All 3 of whom have very live arms to varying degrees of, establishment success in 2023. Manoah is obviously the buy low of that group. I think Peralta is the buy high of that group, and Keller is just kind of like going to the classic store that's been open for business forever. Like, Pirates, will you give me another thing? Are the Pirates, by the way, ever going to try and contend? Because I feel like this would be about the time that they would start to think about trying to contend, but we'll see. Okay, so let's go to a second round of this. For this selection, I'm going a slightly different, but slightly the same direction, meaning a pitcher who was much higher valued in 2022 than he was in 2023, a player that does come with, although at a higher level, cost certainty, and someone that I kind of feel you could get for almost nothing. And that is former Dodger and current Angel, sloppy, blobbing it up there left-hander, Tyler Anderson. Okay, now let me say one thing right off the top. Tyler Anderson will never in his career again replicate what he did in 2022. In 2022, with Dodger pixie dust all over his glove, Tyler Anderson threw almost 180 innings of 2.57 ERA, 3.31 FIP, 1.00 whip baseball. Okay, he had his career year. The Angels, because they're dumb, then paid Tyler Anderson for his career year, signing him to a 3-year, $39 million contract. 3 years, $39 million, $13 million a year. We just said 15 minutes ago on the show, can the Padres even afford a pitcher at $12 million a year? Tyler Anderson is at $13 million a year. I'm here to conjecture, offer conjecture. Is conjecting the proper conjugation of that? I don't know. I'm here to offer that the Angels would probably put some money in a deal if you traded a decent prospect, not Snelling, not Lesko, not Marcy, but if you gave them a top 15 prospect, I think they'd give you Tyler Anderson and $8 million. And if you got Tyler Anderson and $8 million, now you're paying $9 million a year for 2 years for a pitcher that at his base, throw out 2022, throw it out, ignore it. At his base, he should give you 165 innings of 4-ish ERA baseball. He should give you innings, and he should give you an ERA, Petco Park. Previously, he pitched in Colorado and gave you 176 innings of 4.5 ERA baseball. He pitched in Pittsburgh for 100+ innings of 4.3 ERA baseball. And last year, he surged up to 5.43. But his ERA or his WHIP was at a career high. His walk rate was at a career high. I think none of it worked out in Anaheim. The pressure got to him. Trade him back to the NL West, put him in a pitcher's park, get a little money. And I think Tyler Anderson is a very serviceable number 4, number 5 starter.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can we sublet him out to other teams for money? Because it seems he's at his most valuable when pitching against the Padres.
So we get him, but 5 times we have to face him. But we save like $6 million.
Exactly, but we get money for those losses. Those instant,
they're like guaranteed wins.
Guaranteed losses.
Yeah.
Colorado, $1.25 million, and you get this guaranteed win. Buddy's like, sign me up. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? I've never thought Tyler Anderson as being anything other than a super mediocre pitcher, but this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 4th starter value, innings pitched at a low cost, and I think you could get that with him.
Okay. Craig, I don't like it. I love it. I truly, if you were to draw it up exactly how you drew it up, if they sent us $4 million a year for the remaining 2 years of his deal, and we sent over, I don't know, we traded hot on Graham Pauley, for instance, and said, you think he's worth a lot because he had that nice Arizona Fall League where he had 3 weeks in the desert where the ball was flying. And he's completely blocked and we have nowhere to put him. Yeah, I think I would go for that. Because if there's again, it's like, I couldn't help but laugh when you brought up the Dodgers numbers, because he really just did have that, like, whatever, drive line, pixie dust, fairy shit going on. Like, it
cheating. We can just call it cheating.
Cheating.
That's what it is.
Sure.
Cheating.
But if there's anyone who I think can replicate even half of that, it's Ruben Niebla. And like, he's a perfect, and my pick for that I'm going to bring up later is right in line with that as well. And so I think we need to be looking at Ruben Niebla much as an asset, much as, the Guardians did with their program when they got Enyel De Los Santos, who was nothing, and then turned him into a real reliever. So I really like it. I think this is very creative, and I think this would be a really interesting exercise.
I think this move is stupid and dumb.
Yes.
And not one you should do. Because my next proposal would be another pitcher from the Angels, and I'm going to need all the capital you suggest sending to them for Tyler frickin' Anderson, who destroys us and I can't stand, because we're going to need to give it to them for Patrick Sandoval.
Oh, okay. Ooh. All right. Well, there you go.
he's 27 with his arb years in front of him. He gets hit, but he doesn't get hit that hard. He's not that great, but he pitches 140 innings. And yeah, the Angels are looking to not spend money when all their good players leave and they trade Mike Trout to Philadelphia. They're going to be looking to load up on all of our sweet Suker, having traded their farm away for Lucas Giolito last season. So I don't like it because you're giving me Tyler freaking Anderson and I want Patty Sandoval.
Okay, is Patrick Sandoval better than Tyler Anderson? Just looking at the numbers.
No, probably not.
I don't know that he is. I mean, let's see. Anderson is at almost 1,000 innings for his career, 943. Sandoval is at 456. So he's halfway there. But career whip for Patrick Sandoval, 1.372. And it went over 1.5.
And it should say his best year was barely under that. It was 134 when he had a pretty solid 2022.
Yeah, he's changeup only. I mean, I've watched Patrick Sandoval. Patrick Sandoval's got a really, really good changeup that he throws all the time. And he struggles with command very much. I mean, he's Blake Snell levels. Walked 4.6 batters per 9 innings last year. 74 walks in 144 innings pitched. He's a walk machine. And what was weird about Tyler Anderson last year is that he walked guys. And so why am I comparing the two? Because when Tyler Anderson walked a bunch of guys last year, it was out of character. Whereas Patrick Sandoval is very much in character to walk 3 batters in 5 innings, like every start.
Has Tyler Anderson ever struck out as many guys as innings pitched or come close to it?
I don't think so. Let me just double check, unless it was the magic year. No, never. The best he ever did was 164 in 176 innings. So yeah, Sandoval is closer.
He does. And here's the thing. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's at about the top 3/4 of the league for putting the ball on the ground. What do the Padres have behind him? They have an excellent defense. He gets hit, but he doesn't get hit that hard. His barrel rate is right around the same thing, upper 65%. Hard hit rate, 77 percentile. He's not that bad. He's exactly the type of guy financially that they're looking for. You're going to have to give up more for him because he's cheaper and controlled longer than Tyler Anderson. But right. I hate prospects. They're disgusting young people. I want no part of them. Get rid of them. Mad Friar Bren could come at me. Graham Pauley, shoo. They could take one of the young arms that aren't Snelling or Lesko. Iararte, sorry, we loved fantasizing about your potential, but you're an Angel now and your career's over. And then find another one. Find a 20 to 30 guy that poor Perry Molassian is going to cling to like a life raft because he has no farm system anymore. I just think that the Angels are weak and we should prey upon their corpse.
I don't disagree with that. I agree with everything Chris said, especially the part about feeding on the corpse of the Angels. But yeah, I mean, again, it's like, I don't know what it's going to cost. Like, right. It's hard to play when you're playing in that space. I do like Sandoval, and I do think that again, Yabla can come and do some very interesting things for him. I have a little bit of a higher opinion of prospects than Chris does. So that would be my concern.
And I can't pull it up, but his WBC campaign was amazing too. He was a stud.
Well, if we had Benji Heel, then I'd be excited about that, but we don't. So
we have Ruben Yabla though.
Yeah,
that's true. Ruben is our
native.
+3 to all pitchers. Play the Niebla card. Okay, so Raphie, I'd like to get your second suggestion here and see if it fits of a piece with our second suggestions.
So my second suggestion is not going to cost you any prospects because he's a free agent. And he's actually someone that, Craig, you had suggested a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
And he's exactly the type of person who I think the Padres should and will go after. And that's Frankie Montas. So Frankie Montas, of course, pitched for the Oakland Athletics for most of his big league career, was traded to the New York Yankees in the middle of the 2022 season. Was not good in New York, both when he was pitching in 2022, when he posted a over 6 ERA, and when he was not pitching, which was almost all of 2023, because he was down for injury. But the thing about Frankie Montas is, aside from last year when he wasn't pitching, he's really never been a bad pitcher. He's always been really solid. He has thrown almost 600 innings in his career. He has a 3.79 career FIP. He had some really good years in Oakland in 2019. He put up 3 WAR with a 2.63 ERA. In 2021, he put up 4 WAR in 187 innings, 3.37 ERA. He's someone who I thought made a lot of sense when Bob Melvin was our manager. Obviously, no longer the case. But listen, he's coming back from a lost season. It's incredibly hard to value him. I've seen some numbers thrown out there that, he might cost somewhere like $12 million a year. I think that's a little high. That was from an Athletic article that also, speculated on but written by Tim Britton, who I think had some very inflated salaries. I think you can get Frankie Montas for something closer to $7 or $8 million, maybe $9. He did make $7.5 million last year in arbitration, so probably going to want more than that. But he's going to sign a 1-year prove-it deal, and why not us?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? We got Niebla. We can reform him. So he's my pick. Go ahead, Chris.
Real quick, but is he? Because the Padres, are the experts of this 1-year prove-it deal, but with options that make it look much bigger and give both sides that I think he's an ideal guy for that, for the 1 year at this amount, exactly what Waka did. But
Precisely.
then the club,
I would literally offer him Michael Walker's contract, like maybe plus $1 million. I would offer him Michael Walker's contract. Come here, do this, incentive laden. Started at a base of something like 5 or like 6. Incentive laden. You make 15 starts, you get a bonus. You make 25 starts, you get a bonus, and then put in the club plus team, team first, player second. Do all of that. He's got obviously the formula in a file cabinet, in his office. Like, throw that formula at Frankie Montas where you say, hey, Frankie, you believe that you're one of the best starters in the league. We believe that too. Come here with us, get right, get healthy, pitch on the West Coast. New York wasn't a fit for you. Come here, pitch with us. If you pitch great, then you're going to have an option either for us to, secure you at a rate that's going to be really happy for you, that will negotiate, or a chance for you to go back, take your talents to market and really cash in. I think it's the type of deal that Frankie Montas will take this year. And I love it, Rafe. Obviously, I brought him up in September thinking that he would go like, oh, Bob Melvin, my old friend, I'll sign with him. So probably he'll sign with the Giants. But if we were going to get a guy like that on a Waka Lugo make it right deal, I think he's a perfect candidate.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about the Waka deal specifically in him is that he's not, we'll be lucky if Montas throws 100 innings this year. Like, he didn't throw at all this season. And the year before that, he threw 144 1/3 innings. So, he hasn't had like a really, really strong workload since 2021. So I think if you give him that option, and you give him the Waka deal, which I think would be great, $6.5 million, and then potentially the 2-year $32 million club option, or I think he would get 3 player options. Is that what it was at $6.5 million?
Yeah, right.
Something like that. If he throws 100 innings of really solid baseball, are we going to be willing to pull the trigger on a club option that would pay him whatever it is over the next 2 years? I think there would be a lot of uncertainty baked into that. So I think it would be great if he took the Waka deal. It's something in that I'm of the opinion that because he could come out and be unbelievable and like would not want to take that upside away. So
Well, I
I hear
mean, what
you.
if you even scale it up 30% and his base is at like 7 or 8 and, you know, all the options are at 20 or whatever? Like, I still think he's a great fit. And if it's on a 1 year, that's fine. Like, but I would prefer to have the option of having him on the club for
Of
longer if
course.
AJ can break out his uh what's the slide rule type thing?
Abacus.
Abacus, there it is.
All right, I'll wrap up with just a quick run of about 3 to 5 other pitchers that I think would be in this category. Okay, like kind of in the same basket. And Dennis Lin did a great job in an article this morning on The Athletic, creating like 4 different tiers of pitchers. I've kind of eliminated each of the top 2 tiers from this. We've been talking about pitchers in the 3rd tier. Manoah, Montas, Tyler Anderson are all in that tier. Along those lines, a guy that I would mention is Eric Lauer, who was just released. It was outrighted from Milwaukee when they didn't pick up an option on him. I think he's kind of in that vein. And then Martin Perez in Texas is another lefty innings sopping. You wouldn't want to use him in the playoffs type pitcher. And then even going down below that, one guy that's kind of interesting to me that he put in his tier list is Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta has just kind of been there for Boston the last couple of years. He's been in the rotation. They moved into the bullpen last year. He was actually really good in the bullpen last year, but he has swing and miss in his game. He's got a big curveball. His career FIP is under 4. And I feel like, I don't know. The Red Sox probably want to keep him. He's under contract, but if you could like swing for a guy like that, I feel like that's a guy that could be a Nick Martinez step in like very easily. Like he's the kind of pitcher I could see step in on a deal like that. So if it's not Anderson, if it's a Perez, if it's a Lauer, you know, I feel like I feel better, guys. I feel better after this discussion. Like,
Yeah.
You can scratch off all the $28 million starters. And like, I mean, I literally, you can go through this top tier. Here's the top tier that Dennis Lin came up with. Okay. Corbin Burns, right? Wasn't as good as he was the last 2 years. He's got 1 year of control and he's going to cost a gajillion prospects. Like that's going to be the number 1 price out of Milwaukee. So I don't know. Yamamoto, we already talked about. It's going to cost everything. Snell is the number 1 please avoid pitcher in a lot of analysts, think pieces this offseason. Dylan Cease was friggin' terrible last year. Like he was awful. He was almost as bad, not as bad, but he was almost as bad as Manoah. Like he was bad. He was not good last year. So if you were going to trade like 2.5 times as much to get Dylan Cease as Alek Manoah, I'd be like, I think you're kind of crazy there. When you look at relative value, Jordan Montgomery, he was great in the playoffs. Like, are you going to give Jordan Montgomery $100 million for 4 years and feel good about that?
It blows my mind that people are saying Snell is the number 1 risk when all of Jordan Montgomery's value was accumulated in this year's postseason.
Yeah. Here's the rest of this tier. Sonny Gray just signed $25 million a year. Eduardo Rodriguez, Tyler Glasnow, Shane Bieber, who you'd have to trade for, and Marcus Stroman. Like, do you really feel amazing putting big money behind any big money or big prospects behind any of those pitchers in the top tier? Like any of them, of all of them. If you said to me that they re-signed Blake Snell, I'd be like, well, okay, he loves it here. He's 6'4", 220. He'll probably pitch well. He'll probably pitch durably for 4 to 5 years. I don't know if I believe that about literally anyone. Yamamoto's just top price. I think he's Ferrari price. He's out of our market. Every one of those other guys, I've got like legitimate questions as to whether I'd want to commit to the next part of their careers.
Glasnow's a stud, but he is just coming off of a surgery and is going to cost a fortune from Tampa Bay for not a lot of control.
And he's 30. He's been hurt multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, do you really want to bet big on guys like this. This is where honestly, I feel so much better after this conversation. If you told me that in 2 months, the Padres will have one of Manoah, Peralta, Keller, one of Anderson, Sandoval, Montas, and then get a Pivetta type, all of a sudden I'm feeling so much better about the direction of this starting staff going into 2024.
Raphie, did you have another one?
I have a wild card that I didn't want to say because I need to get your reactions. So this is someone who is in the spirit, in the vein of reclamation projects, of a high risk, high reward move. And I want you to imagine not that we're on the dirt of a baseball infield, but we're on the dirt of a ghost town. And riding over the sunset, woo, woo, wah, 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 dirt kicking up behind a horse. It's the sheriff. It's Chris Paddock. Now, here's why. Chris Paddock is coming off of Tommy John surgery, okay?
Yes, he is.
He showed up for a few innings in 2023. He is cost controlled. He signed a 3-year, $12.5 million deal with the Twins. He's due to get paid $2.5 million this year and $7.5 million next year. You have to make the deal now. You can't wait. You have to make it now because what you're betting on is that the Twins are getting cold feet. And they're like, you know what? We don't know about this guy. Like, I don't know.
His tattoo.
I saw his tattoo where you have to pay him $10 million and he might be fucking nothing. and you know, the Padres can say, hey, like, we'll toss you a nothing prospect. We'll take on that contract. Hey, he knows how to pitch in San Diego. We never had, you know who his last pitching coach in San Diego was? Larry Sliders, Father Time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He never got to meet. I mean, I guess he got traded on opening day. So he had one spring training with Ruben Niebla. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, while we're throwing out batshit crazy ideas, the Chris Paddock villain heel turn, like rolling out in the UPS uniforms, as he called it, the brown and gold. That's chaos for me. Like, I love that.
I'm all for it, only if we get an Office style documentary camera on Michael Paddock for the announcement.
He's back.
The Judd Twitter account.
The Twitter account goes blue check. Like, that's how you're gonna know. It's like, whoa, blue check Judd. Hang on.
I am fine with this as long as the horrific lion tattoo that he got on his forearm, so that the opposing hitter would be looking at 2 lions, gets turned into a tattoo of Cher.
Great deal. Counter offer, he gets a 3rd lion tattoo. More lions.
More lions. All right. Well, now that we've got the sheriff back, everything's good. Padres win the World Series in 2024. It is decided. Padres Hot Tub. Not only did we make it through an episode where nothing happened, I think you feel better now.
I do.
You're welcome. You're all welcome. Please subscribe to our Patreon because I think we've earned it this month.